Hello and welcome to Just a Tiny Amount, your channel for all things stop motion. I'm Gordon Craig and this is day one of what I'm referring to as Project Ambitious. Project Ambitious is based around the fact that I've just received my Stickybones. If you've not encountered one of these before, it was a kickstarted project to make a very posable figure. Predominantly used for animation, although as an armature it's probably not particularly useful, but as something that you can have fun animating, it looks very posable. So I was going to try and see what I could do with it. So I wanted to put it through its full range of motions and see what the limits and possibilities of the Stickybones is. So to do that, I picked a challenging subject matter. So you might have seen the viral video of the gymnast Katelyn Ohashi as she did that amazing routine where she sort of flips in the air, she's doing the splits, suddenly she's not doing the splits and it's all, way! So I thought, well, this can do the splits. And also it came with a rigging thing. So I should be able to do sort of flips in the air and stuff. We'll see how it works. The technology that they both use is essentially a fixed ball and socket joint. So it's just the friction between the plastic balls and the joints that they are snapped into. How long this will stay rigid enough to hold a position, whether it can hold all of the positions I need, whether it can achieve some of the poses that Katelyn can get into, because she is a very bendy and bouncy woman, we'll find out. The biggest problem with this in terms of an ambitious project is that, well, the routine is like a minute and a half long or something like that. When I'm filming it at 24 frames a second on 2s, that's still just over 1,000 frames. I'm going to try and do this in this week, which means that I need to do about 200 frames a day, which is a lot. Especially seeing that it's already halfway through day one and I haven't even set up the camera yet. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge. If I'm right in thinking, a gym floor should be about 12 meters by 12 meters. My desk is not big enough. With the scale of the Stickybones, it would need to be 1.6 by 1.6 meters, which it isn't. So that's going to be a challenge. The other thing that I'm doing just to make things a little spicier for myself is I'm trying to replicate all of the camera moves and zooms that you see in the viral video. It's a handheld camera and the person is not particularly stable. It doesn't appear to be on any tripod or anything. So yeah, that's going to add a little bit of complexity to the moves. I'm going to be a wreck at the end of this week. Yeah, let's get started. So it's day 2 of Project Ambitious and progress has been made to a certain value of progress. Of the scheduled 200 frames, I've managed to film 72. Which isn't as bad as it seems, seeing that I only had half a day. And the beginning bit was sort of a difficult sector. The gymnast, Katelyn, was moving very sort of small, subtle sort of dance moves, which were a bit difficult to achieve with the puppet. It's okay to animate. Some of the joints are way too stiff, some are way too loose, and you can't adjust them, so you just have to live with it. It's not preventing me from animating, it's just making the job a little bit trickier. I've made some choices that's not helping with the situation. So for instance, the base that it's on is a disc of metal that the magnets in the feet will stick to. And to cover my sort of scrappy desk, I've put down a sheet of fabric, which means that the metal disc on the fabric is very slick. So you sort of touch the puppet in any place and it'll spin round. It's going to be moving across the table, so I can't really fix it in a certain position. So we'll see how that works out. The rigging is a little bit annoying. I've only used it a couple of times just when Katelyn's running. You can put the sort of rigging and the puppet in the right place, but it's only once you've left go and everything's sort of settled and the rigging's bent slightly, then the final position that it's going to be held in is known to you. So you have to sort of place it a bit higher than you want and let it sag down into the place. So it's more of a case of trial and error than actual precision movements. That's a similar situation to the camera moves that I'm also putting into the shot. It's a very weird experience. Normally if I touch the camera in any way, that's a shot ruined and I run and scream and tear my hair out. But with this, I'm purposefully moving the camera occasionally, which is weird. I'm turning it using the handle at the back, so I need to loosen and tighten it each time I want to move it up and down or left and right. So again, it's not a precise art. The other problem with this is the way I'm handling the camera moves is I've made a little mark in the background of the shot, and I've chosen a point in the reference footage, and then I'm keeping those lined up so that the camera moves are similar. The problem is the distance between the original camera person, Katelyn, and that point in the background, and my camera, the puppet, and the point in my background, the proportions are all different. So a little movement on their side is a big movement on my side. So that's causing a little bit more jerkiness in the camera moves than ideal. It's a stylistic thing. It'll work and you'll get used to it after a while, especially with all the big camera moves that are going on. So today I'm continuing to film the first big trick of the routine, where she runs from one corner to the other corner, doing a lot of flips and tumbles and stuff on the way. I predict that I'm going to run out of space. The way I'm hoping to get around this is to essentially keep going onto the desk that's next to the one that I'm filming on. This currently has my laptop and lights and stuff on. So hopefully if I move those out the way and keep them out of shot, then I can sort of continue the tumbling off into the distance. If it goes off the end of the table or hits the wall, well, we'll see what happens. Anyway, on to day 2. So it's day 3 of Project Ambitious, and the band played on, despite the fact that the dance floor is rapidly emptying and the captain is shouting something about an iceberg. This shot is having issues. If it was a professional gig, I would have ended this take a long time ago. But seeing that I'm only 10% through the total number of frames, I'm just going to crack on and see what the end result is like. Despite this negative open, I'm actually reasonably pleased with the way the animation is going. The opening bit, where Katelyn is sort of jigging around, looks really accurate and quite natural, so I'm quite pleased with the way that turned out. The Stickybones armature and its rigging is coping reasonably well with all of the flips and cartwheels and tumbles and stuff from the first big set of tricks that I've done. The problem with that section is because everything's happening so fast and I'm filming on 2s, there's often quite big jumps between positions, which I think is noticeable in the playback. So ideally that bit would be filmed on 1s, but I really do not have the time to double my workload. My main concerns with this take comes from a few technical issues that I've been having. The first is that there was a large blob on my sensor. I didn't notice this at first because it only really shows up when you look at the actual images being taken by the camera, not at the preview shots that you get in Dragon Frame. It also only shows up when you've got a light background to a picture. I think it's the result of me cleaning my sensor several weeks ago now. So before I did the robot and even the gorilla animation, I noticed a few flecks on the sensors, so I wiped it down. What I think happened was that there was a large amount of solvent sort of puddled up on one side, and that dried and left a bit of a ring and some speckling. So yeah, so that needed to be fixed. Seeing that I was moving the camera anyway, and this shot is a bit sort of free-spirited, I decided that I was going to clean the sensor in the middle of the shoot, which actually went okay. The second bit of technical annoyance is actually with one of the lights that I'm using to light the scene. It's actually an LED panel that's mounted on top of the camera, and it's supposed to sort of remove all of the shadows from the puppet. The issue is that for some reason it started to dim as the shot went on. I think it's got something to do with whether it's charging or whether it's fully charged. I've got it plugged in so that it's essentially mains powered at the moment, but I think that's affecting, I don't know, voltages or whatever. So yeah, the light changes depending on how long it's been left on for. So what I'm trying to do is leave it on for a reasonable period of time, make sure it's fully charged. At least I get a consistent light then. It might not be the brightest, but it's not going to change. The next issue is actually one that I was sort of expecting. The table that I'm using for a stage is just not long enough. I'll show you. So it was supposed to finish about here, but then it ended up going all the way over to there. The other issue with going that far along the table is that it's not where the camera was set up to shoot to. So I tried to have the camera sort of halfway along where all of the action would take place, but now it's more, I don't know, a quarter of the way along. So there's a lot of the shot which is way over in the distance where there's no lighting. Yeah, so that's not entirely how it was planned. Anyway, Katelyn's about to tumble all the way back again, so I'll crack on with day 3. Day 4, and Stickybones is still in the corner. Katelyn does a little dance which took longer than expected, largely because there's a desk and a cabinet in the way of me actually getting to the puppet. So I have to lean over every time I want to change its position. This is slowing me down in a few ways. When I'm leaning over to move the puppet, I'm in the way of the camera, so I can't see what the movements are doing, and so I need to sit back down and reassess. Also, leaning over is really quite hard on the back, getting up and down, so I'm having to take regular breaks to sort of stretch myself out. This has slowed it down, so I only managed 55 frames yesterday, which is way below what I'm hoping for. I do have to say though that this is quite a good experience in terms of, well, Katelyn moves her whole body like a dancer, so any little shift in position and pretty much everything changes. This is good to animate with the Stickybones because it's an exposed armature. You can see where all of the joints are. Normally with a puppet this is all covered with foam and clothing and stuff, but with the Stickybones you can see exactly what position everything's in. So if Katelyn sort of shifts her hip up slightly, this changes the way that the sort of spine section and the rib section and the neck and the head, just so that sort of the head is staying in the same position whilst everything else is moving. Using the Stickybones, you're forced to consider how everything is moving in relation to each other, it's a good habit to get into, and I need to make sure that I consider this when I'm doing normal puppets. Today I'm very much hoping that we get past this little sort of arm wavy dancey session and get back over somewhere where both the lighting is better and it's more comfortable to work with. So that's day 4. Ambition. Day 5 of Project Ambitious, and I think I'm going to finish this video diary here. The animation itself is far from being finished. I'm averaging about 60 shots a day, so it's going to take me probably about 3 weeks to actually get the full video done. As a project, I actually recommend this taking some footage, be it gymnastics or dance or, I don't know, sports of some description, and try and recreate it in stop motion. It's a good exercise in looking at the way the human body moves and transfer of weight and movements that you wouldn't think would look right on camera, but when you take the shots in the various different positions and string them together, it looks correct. So definitely an education. If you do go for something as complicated as gymnastics, I recommend finding some footage with multiple camera angles for two reasons. One, it's going to break up the shoot, and two, it's going to give you a bit more insight into what's actually going on. Doing this as one continuous shot with the camera just rotating left and right means that because I'm stopping it at the end of each day, when I start it up again, the lighting's a bit different, the camera's moved slightly from when I've pressed the power button or changed the lighting. So it's really difficult to continue the flow of the shot. Trying to put the breaks in where there's a big camera movement helps. But if you can break it up into multiple different shots, that makes life so much easier. The other thing is, gymnasts seem to defy the laws of gravity. So everything that I've got used to with moving centers of masses around and where things pivot when they're flipping over, that all goes out the window. I never quite know where the arc is in the movement because there's so much shifting of body weights that you're going in one direction and suddenly you'll flip round 2 times and then land in a totally different orientation. And it's like, I don't know what's going on here, so I'm just going to guess. And the footage is so blurred and it's happening so fast and it's at an awkward camera angle. It's like, where is that other arm? What position that is the hand in? Is that leg moving forwards or backwards? And it's really quite confusing if you don't know the sport in intricate detail. So multiple camera angles might help with that. As far as the Stickybones goes, I would say that it's an interesting experience and probably would recommend it to people who want to give puppet animation a go but don't want to go to the effort of actually making an armature from scratch. The armature itself, it's quite good. Some of the joints are a bit stiff, others are a bit on the loose side, but once you've been using it for a wee while, you get used to that sort of thing. My main issue is with the rigging. So to hold it in the air, you've got the rigging set up that's got multiple joints, but is made of plastic so that it bends. The joints sometimes will hold position, sometimes will slip. It's difficult to get it into the right position without a lot of trial and error. And then whether it holds it in that position long enough for you to take the shot it's a matter of luck in most instances. So yeah, I wouldn't say the rigging's particularly good in terms of the aerial stuff. It's possible that I'm doing quite complicated things with all the backflips. If you're just wanting to have somebody running and occasionally both feet being off the ground, it might be a bit better for that. In terms of holding the puppet to the ground, the rigging used, well, you've got options. I've put magnets into the feet and hands, which is okay for the most part. I would prefer to use tie down in general, but the amount of running around that's going on, my table would be riddled with holes that I can't really afford to have. So I had to go with the magnets. They are good for holding the puppet in place for the sort of quick shots. For the prolonged shots where Katelyn was stood in a certain position and moving around, they did sort of slip around quite a lot. The main problem with them is that because the magnets are so strong, you can't have one foot hover slightly over the ground for a prolonged period of time, because the moment it gets close to the metal plate, it'll just try and stick to it. So the kit did come with some spare toes, I'm assuming that these are if you lose some of the parts, but I was using it so I could swap it out when a foot wanted to get close to the ground, but not actually stick to it. It made it quite awkward, and you had to sort of take the puppet out of place to swap the foot over and then put it back in shot. In normal animation, the magnets wouldn't be part of the puppet. The puppet foot and hands would be metal. You would have really strong magnets underneath the stage to hold the limb in place, rather than having the magnets in the limb. So it's an interesting setup and works a lot of the time, but not all of the time. So in summary, using Stickybones for a project like this, I would say, yeah, give it a go. There's a lot that you can learn from it. I certainly did. As far as this project goes, I do want to finish it, but I think I'm going to change the definition of finished. I'm going to edit the original footage down so that it's about half the length. So essentially, take the big end piece that everybody's familiar with, where Katelyn finishes on the splits and bounces back up again. Stick that bit essentially onto where I've got to already, and then work out some moves that gets her from where she is on the stage to where she needs to be on the stage to begin the final set of tumbles. The problem is I don't know whether I'm going to get a chance to do all of this. I won't be doing any filming this week because I'm going to be at the Move Summit in Edinburgh. To find out about that and the rest of this project, please like and subscribe to see future videos. Until then, this is just a tiny amount. I'm Gordon Craig, and I shall see you next time.